Hello, everyone. This is Rick, and welcome to Astral Club. This is Astral Hospital. And before we get started, I just want to mention Patreon. We have two new patrons, JWC and Amanda, who are Astral Scouts supporting the work of Astral Club. If you're interested in joining Patreon, you get there's downloaded episodes there that you can put on your podcast app and listen to offline. There's no commercials, and there's an email where we can talk back and forth. You can ask questions, and of course, you get advanced videos on Sunday. And if you're interested, there'll be a link to Patreon in the description. Next up, private lessons. If you're interested in learning how to astral project, be more than glad to work with you. You'll find an email where you can request information also in the description. I'm talking about Astral Hospital. I just think I should mention that my wife Lynn did extremely well in the surgery, and looks like everything is clear sailing at this point. She's 90% of the way there healing, and just has a few treatments to go through. Luckily, no chemo, and she'll be right as rain. So I just want to thank everyone who sent their prayers and energy. I appreciate it very much. Okay, Astral Hospital or Astral Rest and Recovery areas. I'm going to use my own experience plus one of my favorite books, Astral Dynamics by Robert Bruce, to discuss this particular place, if you want to use that term, in the astral. Many people who pass over from lingering diseases where they died very slowly usually require some form of rest and recovery in the astral. If you recall, when I visited the monk after the trauma that he went through, he was in a conventionalization of a hospital, which from my standpoint looked a lot like the last hospital that I was actually in myself. Of course, what you have here is an energy level that is very plastic in that it allows your mind to form it into a shape that is most convenient and helpful and comforting to you. So when I think about people getting better, I think about a hospital, and I think many people in the West have also certain ideas as to what that hospital is going to look like, and people in other areas of the world probably have similar or slightly different versions of what they're going to see when they're in a place where they're getting well. And I know when I've walked through this astral hospital, I have seen different types of rooms that have different designs. Some of them are older, some of them are newer. And I think sometimes very elderly people, when they pass, they're remembering a conventionalization of a hospital room that hasn't existed on the physical plane for quite some time, but it's still buried in their mind, so that's what's manifested. Looking at the actual book by Robert Bruce, under the heading of Astral Rest and Recovery Areas, he says, many people, when they die, seem to shift into an astral rest and recovery area. Spirits rest and sleep in these areas until they recover from conditions imposed on them during their lives and are ready to progress into the spirit world proper, taking more active roles in their afterlife. In other words, much like a physical hospital, if you've been injured, you need to recover in this physical hospital before you can go back into the world. Many people who pass in the physical also require a similar level of care so they can regenerate whatever energies were depleted during their long illness before they can then go ahead and move forward with their next opportunity in reincarnation or moving further into another plane, what have you. As I mentioned, Robert Bruce also says that when he visited these rest and recovery places, he also saw different types of atmospheres in the rooms. So he saw something very similar to what I saw. And much like I believe, he says that, of course, this isn't a hospital floating somewhere around in the astral dimension. It's staffed by people who are there, not people maybe, souls that aren't necessarily human, are there to administer assistance to souls that are there that have just come from Earth and need to regenerate their energy levels. And interestingly enough, he also talks about something that I have noted. He says the doctors and nurses who staff and run this astral hospital do not appear to be real spirit beings. So far, he says, he has not been able to strike up anything resembling a meaningful conversation with any of them. He says they seem to be two-dimensional. I have my theories on this as well. I was actually able once to interrupt one of these entities briefly when I had a very clear and strong telepathic signal that I wanted to ask a question about what was going on with the monk. And the idea that I got was that this entity was very busy and that it was on another level and that I was interfering in its duties, but because of the strong signal, it stopped and addressed my question and then went off and did its thing. They can look two-dimensional to our eyes as well on the astral. And I think it's because they're coming from a higher level. I don't know whether it's the fifth or the sixth dimensions, but because they're vibrating at a much higher level, we see them only vaguely, and they don't seem to be real to us because their energy is much more rarefied, and they are so on task about helping to heal these souls who have passed over, that they're extremely focused, and anything that doesn't involve their task at hand seems to be beneath their notice, or at least they don't have the time to address it. And so, in that sense, I had a similar experience to what Bruce is describing, although I was able to briefly interact. On the other hand, he says, many of the people or spirits that he met while visiting or waiting for patients in the hospital seem to be quite real, of course, because they're spirits who've just transited from the third dimensional physical plane. So, of course, they still they're used to operating within a certain environment, and they're certainly used to communicating with folks near and at our particular level. They do, however, seem to not always be aware of the length of time that has passed since they passed over. It's very easy to lose track of time when you're on the astral, and once you've passed over, you don't even have that connection to the physical anymore. That's been severed. And when you're on, especially when you're on the healing plane, it's very easy to lose track of time. Time becomes this weird, abstract, semi-dreamy type of idea that you almost can't quite recall anymore. He also reports something that I have seen. I don't have as much experience with this as he seems to have had. I've only been there several times, but he says that when he's talked to some of these spirits, they only have vague memories of the various areas, dimensional areas that they've come from. They have sketchy details. They often speak about a warm, brightly lit place where they felt very loved. And they know now that they're in this place and they're healing. Um, but they really are fuzzy on any details. I think it may be a combination of the energy they depleted while they were passing, the fact that they're now on a healing plane, and the healing energies aren't just of a basic level. They're also reintegrating the soul matrix. So it can sort of be like trying to reboot a computer from scratch and reloading all of the software onto it again, including the operating system. And so while you're doing that, the computer is really basically almost not useful. Uh, so I think that might be what's happening here is that their soul matrix, their mental processes are being rewired, they're being repaired. So a lot of these spirits are in a very dreamy type environment because they're undergoing this rapid healing. Well, that was Robert Bruce's take and my take on astral rest and recovery or the astral hospital. If you found that interesting, please hit the like button, share it with those like minds. Subscribe if you haven't already. Make sure that bell is solid and on all so you get notified on Wednesday and Saturday when the new episodes are posted. And as always, this is Rick, and I will see you on the astral plane.